Hey y'all, I'm back for our third week of our superheroes of the Bible. I hope everyone's having a great summer and staying safe. Today we're going to read about the story of Moses. So a series of strange events created a hero who rescued his people from slavery. Moses was a miracle from the start. At the time he was born, his Israelite people were slaves to the Egyptians. The Egyptians feared their slaves might turn against them, and they feared how many Israelites were being born. So the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, ordered his people to drown all Israelite baby boys in the river. When Moses' mother gave birth to a boy, she hid him for 3 months to protect him. When she couldn't hide him any longer, she placed him in a basket in the tall grass by the river. His sister watched to see what would happen. Of all people, Pharaoh's daughter found the baby. Although she knew he was an Egyptian, she adopted him as her own. Thanks to his sister Miriam, Moses' own mother was hired to take care of him. We don't know how, but as Moses grew up, he knew that he was not an Egyptian. He felt connected to his true people of Israel. One day, he saw an Egyptian soldier beating a slave. Moses could not contain his anger, and he killed the soldier. When Pharaoh found out, he was very angry. Moses ran away to a place called Midian, where he was welcomed by a priest and his daughters. Moses fell in love with one of his daughters, Zipporah, and he married her. He stayed in Midian for a long time, taking care of sheep and living a quiet life. See if you can see, there's a picture of Moses as a baby in the river, and it says God kept Moses safe for a big adventure. During the time the old Pharaoh died and a new Pharaoh took his place, still Moses' people were kept as slaves and were treated very badly. No one knew what to do, so they prayed for an answer. One day, Moses was caring for his sheep when he came upon a very unusual sight. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't an ordinary fire. The bush was in flames, but the fire was not spreading. The bush wasn't turning black or becoming ashes. As he went closer to investigate, a voice from the bush was calling his name. So whose voice do you think was calling his name from the bush? So Moses knew that this voice was God. I am here, he called back. I am sending you to free the Israelites from Pharaoh, God told him. Moses was surprised and afraid. He was just one ordinary man. How could he be a shepherd, challenge a mighty Pharaoh and win? I will be with you, God told him. Not only did God promise to lead Moses and guide him, but also to provide miracles to prove to the Israelites and Pharaoh that Moses had God on his side. Throw your shepherd's staff on the ground, God told Moses. Moses obeyed. As soon as the staff hit the earth, it transformed. Now, do you know what it transformed into? Transformed into a snake. Then God instructed Moses to pick the snake up by its tail. He did, and the snake turned back into a staff. So here is a picture of the burning bush. And then down here is a picture of the staff turning into the snake. God told Moses that he wouldn't give him, God told Moses that he would give him other miracles too. But still, Moses was unsure. Finally, God offered to send Moses' brother Aaron to help him. Together, they would help free the slaves and lead their people to a new land. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and demanded that he let the slaves go. Of course, Pharaoh said no. In fact, Pharaoh made the slaves work even harder. But Moses and Aaron did not give up. They went back to Pharaoh. To convince Pharaoh of God's power, Aaron threw his staff on the ground, just as Moses did. It turned into a snake as soon as it hit the ground. Pharaoh wasn't impressed. He brought in magicians who performed the same trick. Aaron's snake then ate the magician's snakes. But still, Pharaoh was not afraid. He sent Moses and Aaron away. He would not let the slaves go. Again, Moses and Aaron returned. Moses told Pharaoh to let their people go, or he would turn the water in the river into blood. When Pharaoh said no once more, Aaron struck the water with his staff, and the clear, clean water turned dark red. The fish died, and a terrible smell rose up from the river. Still, Pharaoh stood his ground, because his magicians did the same with their tricks. He sent Moses and Aaron away. 1 week later, God told Moses to return again to Pharaoh to see if he would change his mind. When Pharaoh still refused, Moses told him that worse things were coming. He would bring a plague of frogs upon the land. Sure enough, when Pharaoh once again said no, Aaron raised his hand over the waters, and frogs covered the land. There were frogs in the kitchen, and frogs on the floor, frogs on the beds, and frogs on their heads. Again, Pharaoh's magicians performed the tricks of their own, had called more frogs. What now? Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron before him. Please pray to the Lord to make it stop. Make the frogs go away, and I'll let your people go. Here's a picture. Moses did as Pharaoh asked, but once the frogs were gone, Pharaoh changed his mind. Day after day, God sent plagues against the Egyptians through Moses and Aaron. All the bugs on the ground and in the air swarmed and made the Egyptians sick and uncomfortable. And this time, Pharaoh's magicians couldn't make this trick work. Again, Pharaoh agreed to set the slaves free. But he changed his mind again. Next, all the Egyptians working animals and all the pets died, while the Israelite animals stayed healthy. Then Moses tossed soot from a fireplace into the air, and when it came down, the skin of the Egyptians was covered with sores. So Moses wasn't going to give up on freeing his people because he trusted in God and was following God's plan. So even though Pharaoh was giving him a run for his money, he was still going to continue to get him to change his mind so he would let his people go. A hailstorm followed that killed everything in its path, sparing only the land where the Israelites lived. Would all this trouble work to set the slaves free? Once again, Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron and agreed to release the slaves. Moses stopped the storm, only to have Pharaoh change his mind again. But Pharaoh's answer was never accepted as final. God told Moses to raise his arms to the heavens, and he sent a storm of locusts, big green bugs, that ate all the crops and food they had stored. Pharaoh cried, "Enough! Make it stop. I will do what you ask." Moses prayed to God to send a wind to blow all the locusts into the sea. As expected, Pharaoh changed his mind again. In response, God sent a great darkness over the land, except where the people of Israel lived. The sun didn't shine, and neither did the stars or the moon. No fire or even the glow of a firefly broke through the darkness. The Egyptians could not move or see. The people were starving and thirsty and hurt because of the other plagues God had already brought upon the land. Finally, Pharaoh told Moses he would let his people go, but that they would need to leave their animals behind. Moses did not agree, and Pharaoh would not give in. Instead, he told Moses to go and never come back. But God had something different in mind. He told Moses there was one more plague to come. Every oldest son in Egypt would die, but the Israelites would be protected if they followed God's instructions to mark their homes in a special way. Moses sent messengers through Israelite camps to spread the message to their people. He told every Israelite family to place lamb's blood on the doorpost of each house. This way, when the plague was sent down from the heavens, only the house with lamb's blood at the door would get touched. The house without lamb's blood would get touched. The Israelite children would be saved or passed over. So this miracle is called the Passover. That night, as the Israelites feasted on the meat from the lambs, the plague struck the Egyptian families. The oldest child of every Egyptian family died, including Pharaoh's son. Pharaoh was afraid everyone would die if he did not agree to let the slaves go free. He called for Moses and Aaron and demanded that they take their families and leave immediately. Moses knew that they didn't have much time to gather their belongings and leave. The Pharaoh had changed his mind many times already. Moses, his brother Aaron, and his sister Miriam gathered the people together and led them out of Egypt as quickly as possible. By day, God led them in a cloud. By night, he led them with fire. But God warned Moses that he hadn't seen the last of the Egyptians. Sure enough, as soon as the Israelites had left, Pharaoh changed his mind once more. He took his soldiers and 600 chariots after the Israelites to bring them back as slaves. Fortunately, Moses and his people had made a good head start. They traveled as far as the banks of the Red Sea, but they had no boats and no way to cross the river. So does anybody know the part of the story, what happens, how they get across the Red Sea? So with the Egyptian army approaching and no escape, the Israelites were terrified. Moses knew God would provide a way. God told him to raise his staff in the air and stretch his hand over the sea. A super strong wind blew the water all night until it separated the waters of the sea into two walls with a muddy crossing down the middle. The Israelites were able to move quickly across the sea. When the Egyptians tried to follow them, their chariots got stuck. Moses reached out his hands and the walls of the water came crashing back down. Not one of the Egyptians survived. So do you think Moses would have been able to part the Red Sea without God? No. He wouldn't have been able to do that without God. So on the opposite bank of the Red Sea, Moses' sister Miriam led the people with song and dance. They were grateful to finally be free, thanks to Moses' trust in the power of God and his promises. But there's more to the story. The Israelites wandered in the desert for the next 40 years. Some people lost hope after just days. There was no water or food. But whenever they needed help, Moses simply turned to God. God led Moses to a stick that when placed in bad water, made it drinkable. God also led the people to water in other places as they traveled through the desert. For food, God covered the land with quail in the evening and sent bread like frost on the ground in the morning. They called the bread manna. Still, some people lost faith and forgot the miracles that God provided through Moses. God saw what was happening. He called Moses to the top of the mountain and gave him the 10 Commandments, a set of laws designed to protect his people. Moses was gone for a long time. The people waited for him at the foot of the mountain, but soon they grew restless for a leader. Aaron told them to bring all of the gold and jewels to him. He made the treasures into a metal statue of God that looked of a god that looked like a calf. They celebrated and worshipped the new God. When Moses came back with the 10 Commandments written in stone, just like this, so written like on a big rock, let me find my place, sorry. He was so angry at Aaron and the people that he threw down the stone tablet and they shattered. He pushed the golden calf into the fire and it melted. Moses went back up to the mountain where God provided new tablets. He came back. His face was shining because he had spoke with God. Although he was at first afraid of all God asked him to do, Moses never gave up on God or his people. Moses led his people for 40 years in the desert before they were able to enter the land God had promised them when he set them free from Pharaoh. Thanks to Moses, the Israelites were free and had a strong faith that would carry them through troubled times. Long after Moses died at the age of 120, so Moses lived a long life. So I know that was a long story today. I know most of you have heard of the 10 Commandments. And most of you probably know all of the 10 Commandments. So let's, I want to go over those real fast with you. So, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witnesses. And thou shalt not covet. So the miracles that Moses showed were amazing. But their power came from God. When he was in trouble or doubting, Moses turned to God for the answers. And he remembered to give him the glory. That's what made Moses a superhero of faith. So thank God for how he provides miracles and keeps his promises. Pray to God for help when something seems impossible. because nothing's impossible without God. Nothing's impossible with God, sorry. And listen to God when He says not to be afraid. Sorry that was so long today, but I hope y'all enjoyed the story. And I have one more story left for you this summer, and I will see y'all again next week. Bye.